When Europeans first arrived in the Americas, they did not bring only ships, guns, and trade. They also brought a religion they believed the entire world should follow. At the time, Christianity was completely unknown across the Americas. Yet within just a few centuries, millions of Native Americans would come to practice it. A foreign religion had spread across an entire continent. So how did this massive religious transformation actually happen? For thousands of years before European contact, Native American nations practiced spiritual traditions deeply connected to the natural world. Their beliefs were rooted in land, ancestors, seasonal cycles, and spiritual forces guiding life. Every nation had its own ceremonies, sacred stories, and spiritual leaders. But beginning in the late 15th century, European colonization introduced a powerful new religion, Christianity. Missionaries arrived alongside explorers and colonists, determined to spread their faith to indigenous communities. Over time, this effort would reshape the religious landscape of the Americas in ways both voluntary and forced. 1. The arrival of missionaries. European missionaries began traveling to indigenous lands soon after colonization began. Many believed it was their divine duty to convert native peoples to Christianity. Religious orders such as the Jesuits, the Franciscans, and the Dominican order played major roles. They traveled across the Americas, learning native languages and preaching Christian teachings. Some hoped conversion would bring salvation to indigenous peoples. Others believed Christianity would make native communities easier to integrate into colonial society. But religion was rarely separate from empire. As European territories expanded, missionary activity expanded alongside them. 2. The rise of the mission system. To support large-scale conversion, European colonial powers created mission settlements. These communities gathered Native Americans into centralized locations where missionaries could teach Christianity and European ways of life. One well-known example was the Spanish mission system in California, but similar systems existed in Florida and New Mexico. Within these missions, Native people were introduced to Christian prayers, church rituals, European farming methods, and new social structures. Some missions became centers of religious instruction and colonial control. Many indigenous people complied outwardly but maintained private traditions. For example, some secretly continued seasonal ceremonies while attending church services during the day. Historical experiences varied widely among Native American nations. Some communities resisted missionary influence, others adapted selectively, and some embraced aspects of Christianity while preserving traditional spiritual practices. The history of Native American Christianity is therefore complex and cannot be reduced to a single narrative. 3. Conversion through survival and opportunity. European contact brought dramatic changes to indigenous life. Diseases introduced by Europeans devastated native populations. Wars, displacement, and the loss of traditional lands created instability for many communities. In this environment, joining mission communities sometimes offered practical advantages. Missions could provide food, access to trade goods, and protection within colonial systems. For some Native Americans, adopting Christianity was not only about belief, it was a strategy for survival. 4. Mission schools and cultural change. Missionaries believed educating children was one of the most effective ways to spread Christianity. Mission schools taught reading, writing, and Christian teachings alongside European languages and cultural practices. Over time, these schools exposed entire generations of indigenous youth to Christian beliefs. One Cherokee student recalled learning hymns and prayers by heart, while still holding on to stories from her grandmother about the spirit world. Education became one of the most powerful tools shaping cultural change within Native communities. 5. Government policies and forced assimilation. By the early 19th century, the U.S. government actively supported Christian missionary work among Native Americans. In 1819, Congress passed the Civilization Fund Act, funding religious organizations to establish schools among Native tribes. The goal was to encourage adoption of Christianity, Western education, and European-style agriculture. Government leaders believed assimilation into Christian American society would replace indigenous cultural systems. Religion, in this context, became closely tied to national policy. 6. The boarding school era. In the late 19th century, assimilation intensified through church-run boarding schools. many Native children were taken far from their families. At these schools, students were forbidden to speak their native languages or practice traditional spiritual ceremonies. Instead, they were taught Christianity and Western cultural values. The experience was often traumatic. Some children never returned home for years, and many carried emotional scars for life. 7. Indigenous converts and Native Christian leaders. Despite pressures, some Native individuals genuinely embraced Christianity. One early example was Catherine Brown. After attending a missionary school in the early 1800s, she became one of the first Cherokee converts. She later helped translate Christian teachings and encouraged religious education within the Cherokee Nation. Her story shows that Native leaders often shaped the spread of Christianity within their own communities, rather than simply accepting it passively. 8. The blending of faiths. Even as Christianity spread, many Native communities did not completely abandon their traditional beliefs. Instead, they blended Christian teachings with Indigenous practices. For example, some Cherokee continued to honor ancestral spirits while attending church services. This created a unique faith reflecting both Indigenous heritage and Christian influence. Today, Native Christianity often carries elements of both traditions. Closing reflection. The spread of Christianity among Native Americans was never a simple story. It involved missionary efforts, colonial expansion, government policies, personal choices, and cultural adaptation. Some conversions came through pressure, others came through survival, and some came through genuine belief. But throughout this long and complex history, Native nations continued to adapt, resist, and preserve their identities. History is not just about what was lost. It is about who refused to disappear. Thanks for watching. Mode Hub Tales brings untold history to life. Subscribe now to uncover more hidden stories that shaped the world.